bro?
You going to do good?
Yeah.
Huh?
Back up.
You doing good?
Yeah, stand right there. You understand me?
What's going on?
Stand right there.
You doing good?
Yeah, you're gonna stand right there, okay? Do you understand me? Stand right there.
I hope you have a good night tonight. I'm sorry about the broken glass right here.
You did this?
I didn't do this, but
Okay.
he tried to like wrap me up and shit.
Okay. Well, go ahead and turn around for right now, okay?
I'm not turning.
No, you're not. You're gonna turn around. Is this the guy?
I can't be detained right now.
You're gonna be detained.
I can't be detained right
You're
now.
gonna be detained.
I can't.
You're gonna be detained. Hey, quit it. You're gonna be detained. You're gonna be detained. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back now. You're gonna get tased. Do you understand me? Put your hands behind your back.
Hey, that was uncalled for, bro.
Get back. Get back. Get on the ground!
That was just 2 minutes into the interaction between Officer Sean Lucas, aged 22 at the time, and a rookie on the force in Wolf City, Texas, and Jonathan Price, aged 31, on October 3rd, 2020. Apparently, Lucas was responding to calls about a fight outside of the Quick Check convenience store. According to those at the scene, the fight was between a couple inside of the store, and Price was the one who broke it up. And there's no reason to believe that it isn't true because, as you saw, Price approached Lucas cordially, asking him how he was doing and even offered to shake his hand. He did not appear aggressive towards the officer or the other people around. Further, witnesses claimed that the man involved in the initial scuffle later bear-hugged Price after the fight spilled outside, and then they engaged in a physical altercation. Then, the girlfriend apparently broke it up and the couple drove off. Price's friends and family say the fight had already dissipated by the time the police arrived. These accounts were backed up by Price himself as he was approaching the cop and apologizing for the broken glass. He denied being responsible for it because a man tried to wrap him up and shit. Sure, any reasonable person could conclude from Price's slurred speech and repetitiveness that he was intoxicated. But being drunk in and of itself, as long as the person is over 21 years of age, is not illegal. But Lucas apparently thought his behavior escalated to the point where he needed to be detained for public intoxication. Under Section 49.02 of the Texan Penal Code, in terms of public intoxication, a person commits an offense if the person appears in a public place while intoxicated to the degree that the person may endanger the person or another. Given the broken glass outside of the store and the statements about a fight or fights that had happened, although it's believed Price was breaking it up, not a main aggressor of any kind, Price could perhaps have been found guilty by a court of law for committing public intoxication. Nevertheless, for whatever reason, Price continued to refuse verbally and physically to being detained. That decision, wrongful or not, would unfortunately end up costing him his life. As the footage shows, the situation escalated quickly, and Lucas pulled out his taser and then his gun. To spare you from seeing the disturbing video evidence, we've cut the video short of Price being tased and subsequently shot at least 4 times. Lucas said that he deployed the shots after he believed Price was lunging for his taser. After the shots were fired, the people standing around, at least 2 of which were friends with Price, were outraged. Sadly, as already alluded to, Price later succumbed to the injuries imposed by Lucas and passed away. Like those heard at the scene, his friends and family are furious that such a seemingly calm interaction escalated into murder within a few minutes. They said Price was a pillar of the community and local star athlete around Wolf City, and was a known mentor throughout that small community. Those statements proved true when hundreds of people gathered outside of the gas station for a vigil honoring his life. There were reportedly signs that read things like "Rip Jonathan" throughout the crowd, and his memory lives on to this day. In fact, recently, on April 1st, 2023, the facility next to the Wolf City football stadium was named the Jonathan Price Fieldhouse. Price's mother, Marcella Lewis, said that she lost her baby, and the world lost a hero that day. He had a good heart. He always tried to help others. I taught him that all through the years, she said. Price's sister also commented on her brother's big heart. Everybody loved Jonathan. Everybody. Black, white, Mexican, it doesn't matter. He loved everybody. Everybody loved him. And Price's childhood friend and former professional baseball player Will Middlebrooks took to social media to express his anger and sadness over the loss of life. He began by begging for peace in his hometown and then said, "Most people in that town are behind Jonathan and everything he was about and who he was as a person." Then to end the video, he said, "Hope and pray for justice for Jonathan." Further, a woman named Kyla Sanders, who just so happened to be at a store across the street from where the shooting occurred, said she was devastated and shocked after she heard of the killing. "We all love Price and think so highly of him, and he was just the nicest guy you could ever meet," she said. Interestingly, after his death, social media posts of Price's from a few months prior, around June 2020, when protests were erupting throughout the country in relation to the death of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and many others, were unearthed and circulated, in which he claimed that he never had a negative interaction with police. He wrote, "There were times I should have been detained for speeding, outstanding citations, outdated registration, dozing off at a red light before making it to my garage downtown Dallas after a long night out. I've passed a sobriety test after leaving a bar in Wiley, Texas by 2 white cops and still let me drive to where I was headed. And by the way, they consider Wiley, Texas to be very racist. I've never got that kind of energy from the popo." Civil rights attorney Lee Merritt, who's working on behalf of Price's family, said that the interaction with Lucas may have been the first Price had with a racist white police officer, but that encounter likely would have changed his perspective on systemic racism. But we'll never know for sure because he was killed at the hands of a brutal cop. As for Lucas, following the incident, he was fired by the Wolf City Police Department for violations of its and the city's policies. He was then arrested and charged with murder by Texas Rangers after concluding that his actions were not objectively reasonable. In the probable cause affidavit, the Texas Rangers wrote that, based on video evidence, physical evidence, and eyewitness testimony, it is clear that Officer Lucas did then and there intentionally and knowingly cause the death of Price by discharging a firearm, causing the death of Price. Wolf City officials also had something to say after the event, and they released the following statement. On October 3, 2020, former Wolf City police officer Sean Lucas was engaged in an officer-involved shooting, which resulted in the death of Wolf City resident Jonathan Price. At all times, the city and its police department have fully cooperated with the criminal investigation by the Texas Rangers and the Hunt City District Attorney of Mr. Lucas's actions. That investigation resulted in the arrest of Mr. Lucas, who's been charged with the murder of Mr. Price. Contemporaneous with the criminal investigation, and because Mr. Lucas is a certified peace officer, the city was required to conduct an administrative investigation of Mr. Lucas's misconduct. Earlier today, Mr. Lucas was terminated for his egregious violation of the city's and police department's policies. As the mayor and council of Wolf City, we want to extend our gratitude that the gatherings in support of Mr. Price and his family have remained peaceful. Wolf City is a tight-knit community, and we join you in mourning Jonathan's death and the events of the last week. We also ask that you remember our city employees, many of whom worked with both Mr. Price and Mr. Lucas, as we eventually begin the work of healing our town and the community at large. The comment about the city's employees working with Price is in relation to his job in the Public Works Department. Following the murder charge, Lucas was put on trial in September 2022 in Hunt County, Texas, in the 354th Judicial District Court. The presiding judge was Kelly Aiken. Depending on the jury's verdict and the judge's sentencing, he faced up to 99 years in state prison and up to $10,000 in fines. During those proceedings, Lucas's defense attorneys maintained that he was justified in shooting Price. Attorney Robert Rogers specifically repeatedly claimed that his client acted in self-defense, as Price appeared to be intoxicated and resisted arrest. If any of those commands were followed, we would not be here today, Rogers said. Lucas's defense team also claimed that he gave Price 20 loud commands over a minute, and Price failed to comply with any of them. His attorneys also said that he only discharged his weapon in accordance with Texas law. The prosecution, however, disagreed with Rogers. Steve Lilly, assistant district attorney for Hunt County, said, "This shooting was not necessary, and if not necessary, it was murder." To support its case, the state called Sergeant Jared Hayes, who was on the scene that night. Hayes confirmed that Price was not being violent towards anyone but did smell like alcohol. The defense then asked Hayes if he had a problem with Lucas shooting Price. He said, "I had a problem that he shot Jonathan Price." Nicholas Crockett, who also witnessed the shooting, told jurors that he heard Lucas say, "I said, come here," to Price. Then the officer used his taser on Price, and he stumbled before trying to catch his balance, which was when he was shot. After the 8 days of testimony, arguments, and presentations of evidence, the jurors, who were mostly women, deliberated for approximately 6 hours and ended up acquitting Lucas, meaning that they decided that he was not guilty of the murder charge. As far as criminal law is concerned, Price's family is not done fighting, however. His mother, Marcella Lewis, sued Lucas in Wolf City in federal court for wrongful death and violations of her son's Fourth Amendment rights. Her complaint states, in part, "Officer Lucas was not in reasonable fear of serious bodily injury or death at the time he shot Mr. Price. There was no justification for Officer Lucas to use lethal force against Mr. Price." In the wrongful death action of her civil suit, she demanded all available damages under the Texas wrongful death statute for financial contributions and the loss of future services, support, society, comfort, affection, guidance, tutelage, and contribution that her son would have rendered to the wrongful death beneficiaries, but for his traumatic, untimely, and unnatural death. Further, she demanded the payment of all medical bills and/or expenses that Price accrued because of the shooting and funeral and burial expenses. In terms of her survival action, Lewis demanded for all damages allowed in the Texas survival statute, including but not limited to loss of income, both past and future income potential, as well as pain and suffering prior to death, and for emotional distress by Price from the initiation of the assault upon him until the ultimate cause of his death. At the time of this video's posting, it is unclear what results, if any yet, have come from that suit. If you found this video about a rookie police officer who was fired after fatally shooting an unarmed black man interesting, check out this video about police officers around Washington, D.C. that fatally shot a man of color after he allegedly stole sunglasses from the mall.